Started talking before I was live. Welcome back. Hey, everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's beautiful here in Portland. We even have the windows open. The bunny rabbit is outside enjoying herself. So I hope you have similar weather because it sure makes things a little better. Today, we're going to do chapter 8 of the Crescent Stone, and afterwards, Sarah Parker Rubio, who is one of the staff at my publisher. She's the editor of my books, will be here. In fact, I love her as an editor, and I've requested her on other projects now too. And she is, in many ways, the keeper of knowledge about the sunlit lands. Sarah will be with us at the end of the show to talk a little bit about the sunlit lands, and then I want to ask her a couple questions about her book as well, which is called Far From Home, which I mentioned yesterday. So let's dive in since, oh no sound again. Aaron, is it just you who has no sound, or does everyone have no sound? Hold on. Let me check my settings. Audio. Okay, it says I'm sending sound out. Oh, Jody can hear me, Aaron. Uh-oh. You're going to have to call Jody's phone and listen in. It's got to be on your end somewhere, Aaron. Is it your headphones? Don't be sorry. I'm not sure. Let me know, Aaron. Let me know if you can't find it. I can always call you. Krista says, have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? Yeah, so we're going into chapter 8 today, which is called Roommates. Okay, everyone's saying, sounds like, Aaron, you can't hear, but look. Uh-oh. Everybody's checking in. Uh-oh. Aaron figured it out. Aaron, don't leave us in suspense. What happened? We all want to know. Go ahead and leave a comment. Explain it all. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started on chapter 8. Afterwards, we will have Sarah Rubio with us. Do not forget that tomorrow, at the same time, as always, we'll have an interview with Lori Langdon. If you haven't heard of Lori, she did the Olivia Twist book, she did Guilt Hollow, and she did a 4-book series called Doon, D-O-O-N. So you'll have to check that out too. Oh, hey, look, Micah's with us today. Hi there, Micah. How's it going? Micah's finally had school starting. So, yeah, that's been a lot of work, huh, kid? So now, let's go ahead. We'll jump into chapter 8. So what's happened so far? Madeline Oliver is a young woman with a breathing problem. It's going to be a terminal disease eventually. And I'm sorry, we have to stop and hear about Aaron's problem here. Here we go. Her sound connected to her Bluetooth speaker and was playing in her bathroom for her roommate while she was in the shower. And she's laying in the front yard, so she didn't hear it was coming through the speaker. Well, Aaron's roommate, I hope you enjoyed a small bit of our prelude to the sunlit lands today. That's amazing. Madeline Oliver has a sickness. She's going to die from it. A strange visitor from a magical land comes and says, in exchange for a human year of service, he will heal her completely, fighting an evil group of people called the Skim, which she eventually agrees to. Her friend Jason Wu also ends up going along with her to this place, although her ex-boyfriend does not, but promises he's going to find a way to get to her, although everyone's skeptical of that. And so we pick up in chapter 8. Madeline and Jason have just arrived in the sunlit lands with Hanali, the stranger, and he's taking them to drop them off in the place where they'll be staying in a beautiful city that's called the Court of Far Seeing. There is someone with an English accent in this chapter, and I'm not even going to try. I don't want to embarrass all of us by doing that. So here we go. Chapter 8, Roommates. Your arrival, how, like the sunrise, when the cool eastern light shimmers upon the morning waves. From The Parting, a traditional Johnine song. Oh, hold on just a sec. I forgot my fancy banner. Let's put that back on. Branding. You know who knows what I'm talking about with branding. There we go. Ha. Perfect. I know Jody understands branding. All right. Chapter 8. Here we go. Honnelly had ordered Madeline to stay in the coach, but his argument with the woman in the courtyard seemed to be about her. They had made easy time to the beautiful city of Far Seeing, properly called the Court of Far Seeing, according to Honnelly. They traveled more than an hour, first down from the mountain and then through wide farmland. Farmers walked through the fields behind strange purplish beasts of burden, shaggy things with 4 long curved horns. Their coach passed long citrus groves and orderly rows of some sort of berry, purple, plump, and round. Madeline's heart felt like a helium balloon on an enormous tether. She floated above everything, taking it in, loving it all. She didn't know if it was the increase in oxygen or the fantastical world that matched every book she had ever read, but she felt almost giddy, like a kid waiting in line for a favorite roller coaster. She leaned out the window, taking deep breaths of the air and trying not to giggle uncontrollably at every wonderful thing. At last, they had come to the city walls. Everything about the place was amazing, even the traffic. Not 10 minutes ago, a woman in a bright red dress and an enormous floppy hat had ridden by on a gigantic ostrich. Elephants, decorated in long silks, carried people in curtained rooms upon their backs. They passed a fountain near the main gate where the falling water landed in crystal bowls that played different notes as the water struck them. The fountain sang a tune Honnelly called The Triumph of Ella and Nala. It was a beautiful soaring thing, but he wouldn't allow the coach to stop for her to listen. She had reached out her hand, though, and when a bit of the water sprayed her fingers, she had whooped so loud it woke Jason. She knew she missed Darius. She should miss Darius. She should be worried about her parents. She should be afraid of what was to come, of fighting the skim and learning to live in a new world. But she didn't feel any of those things. She felt happy. All her life, she had wanted something like this: horses and fantastical beasts and elves and mermaids and evil monsters to battle. And here she was, and how could she be anything but deliriously, uncontrollably happy? In time, they had come to a smaller wall surrounding a large country estate. It was on the outskirts of the city, just inside the wall. A human woman had come out to greet them, dressed as a kitchen maid, but now she was clearly giving Honnelly a rough time. Jason still snored on the opposite end of the carriage. Madeline stepped lightly out of the carriage and walked toward Honnelly and the woman, hiding behind a hedge which was covered in beautiful orange flowers. She couldn't just sit there in the carriage, not when there was an entire new world to explore. A fresh scent floated in the air as if someone had scraped the skin of a ripe tangerine. She took a deep whiff, delighted. Telling you that this girl is the girl who will bring justice for the people of the sunlit lands. Multiple far-seers have said so. She's going to save us, do you understand? Honnelly's voice had taken on an almost pleading tone, surprising coming from him. The woman crossed her arms. When she spoke, Madeline noticed her British accent, which you will not notice. Oh, fine then. I suppose I'll have Skim trying to break into my place to murder her. Honnelly hesitated. That may be. Madeline gasped. This was not the story she had been told. This was the first time she had heard about any prophecy, and definitely the first she had heard about the Skim trying to assassinate her. Her good mood deflated. Something about seeing this woman who seemed solid and dependable and, well, ordinary. Something about seeing her and hearing her concerns about the Skim reminded Madeline of the seriousness of her situation. And listening to Honnelly's story, a story she did not recognize, made her realize she may have come here in the company of someone who had a completely different agenda than the one he claimed. Ask the magistrates to provide protection, but I tell you this, Mrs. Raymond, that I won't be treated with this sort of disrespect. You didn't even wear gloves for my arrival, and now you are disparaging my deliveries." The woman, Mrs. Raymond, scowled. "I've told you more than once, Honnelly, son of Vivi, that in the transition house we go by human rules. I can't teach the children all at once to follow the ways of the Elenil. It takes time. I'll put gloves on when you invite me to visit at the palace. Now, Mary, Mrs. Raymond," she said firmly. Honnelly flinched as if slapped. "Mrs. Raymond, then. You know I cannot invite—" "What's that? You're not planning to invite me to the palace? What a surprise. What a surprise." Honnelly slumped, deflated. "How do you do this to me? Here I am, 500 years old to your 50, and you make me feel like a child." "You act like a child," Mrs. Raymond snapped. "Most people are just too polite to point it out. Now, the girl I can see was in dire straits. You were right to bring her here. But the boy, what are you playing at, Honnelly? The boy doesn't fit the pattern." Honnelly glanced back at the carriage. He didn't seem to notice Madeline wasn't there. Maybe he thought she had slouched down and closed her eyes. "The boy," Honnelly said, "is infuriating, but he belongs here, make no mistake. He's a wild card." Honnelly smirked. A wild card can be a good thing. It depends on the game you're playing." "What was his tragedy that allows him to come into our lands?" Honnelly fell silent. Mrs. Raymond shook her head. "I'll not break the rules, Honnelly. Not for you nor anyone else. I'll not be sent back to my lot on earth, thank you very much. You know as much as I that only a child in dire need can enter the sunlit lands. There's a sorrow to him, Mrs. Raymond. It runs deep. Perhaps not as deep as the girl's, I will grant you that. I cannot see it clearly, but he is meant to be here." Mrs. Raymond ran her hands over her hair, tucking away any loose strands. "A wild card is unpredictable. You of all people with your prophecies and prognosticating should be nervous about that. No matter the game, the wild card is only to your advantage if it's in your hand. You didn't even bind him to you, or to the Elenil for that matter." Honnelly inclined his head. "But he is bound to the girl, and she to the Elenil, on pain of eventual death." "You know my feelings about this." Honnelly nodded. "I have no other choice, Mary." She didn't correct him about the name this time. She only said, "Be careful, Honnelly. Be careful." "Any punishment that comes upon you because of these two," Honnelly said, "I'll take it on myself." "You'll bind yourself to that?" "By sun and bone, moon and flesh, I'll bind myself." "Huh. Well then. No special treatment, though. I don't care if she's the savior of the world and he's her servant. We split them up, and you take the girl to the storyteller tomorrow yourself. After the orientation, they go to their assigned duties, just like any other human who comes to the court." Honnelly bowed low. "Of course, Mrs. Raymond. Enough with your foolishness. If someone saw you bowing to a human woman, the trouble, the scandal, sir." Honnelly grinned. "But we're on transition house land. Such behavior is allowed outside the court of Farsi. No wonder you're a recruiter. No doubt your churlish behavior seems charming to the humans." "No doubt," Honnelly said. "But what's this? I see one of your new charges has hidden behind an addleberry bush." Madeline straightened and brushed herself off. It didn't do much given the amount of mud caked onto her scrubs, but she walked to Honnelly regardless and stretched out a hand to Mrs. Raymond. Mrs. Raymond's grip was strong. "What's your name, young lady?" "Madeline Oliver." The older woman's eyes dropped and rose again, taking in Madeline's filthy clothing. "You need a change of clothes and a bath. We're a good 3 hours from dusk, and I suppose you've had a long day." Madeline nodded. "A bath would be wonderful, but I couldn't help but overhear that you're worried someone might try to kill me." Hanalie's eyes flickered from Mrs. Raymond to Madeline. She could tell he was worried about what she might have heard. He covered it well, though, with a bright laugh and a wave of his gloved hand. You're a terrible eavesdropper, my dear. Actually, she was worried assassins would damage her house while trying to kill you. You, Ellen'll never know when to stop talking, Mrs. Raymond said. She took Madeline's hand. We're all at risk from the skim here, Miss Oliver. Hannalie and I have some old ongoing arguments, and one is about how much risk is acceptable. She turned to Hannalie. You take the boy to meet his roommates, and I'll take Miss Oliver to meet hers. Madeline didn't get to say goodbye to Jason because Mrs. Raymond took her arm and guided her toward the house. The carriage, along with Hannalie and Jason, headed for the back of the house while she and Mrs. Raymond went in the front. She noticed that neither Hannalie nor Mrs. Raymond had answered her question about whether someone was trying to kill her. Not really. Mrs. Raymond ran a finger over the tattoo on Madeline's wrist. A word of advice, Miss Oliver. The other young people will ask you for details of your agreement with the Ellen'll. I'd suggest keeping it to yourself. Such gossip always leads to distress, one way or another. She guided Madeline through a wide white door. The polished wood floors smelled of lemon, and a heavy red carpet runner ascended the stairway. Something seemed strange at first, and it took Madeline a moment to realize there were no lights in the house, no switches, no chandeliers or fixtures, no candles, nothing but windows letting in the pure sunshine. Several flights of stairs later, they walked down a long hallway, coming at last to a simple wooden door. Your roommate will help you find your feet, Mrs. Raymond said. She's formidable, should there be trouble. A sharp rap on the door brought an annoyed shout from inside. Mrs. Raymond pushed the door open. In here, she said, you will find a change of clothing and a hot bath. A young woman close to Madeline's age lay sprawled on one of the two beds in the room. An unruly mane of black hair surrounded her like a halo. She wore a loose-fitting t-shirt and a pair of jeans. She was barefoot. Her eyes glittered with determined ferocity, and a shining scar ran from outside of her left eye down to the corner of her lip. Why knock if you're only going to let yourself in? I'm with your roommate, Mrs. Raymond said. Another one? The girl sighed and dropped her head back on her pillow. Madeline held her hand out and said her name. The girl stared at the ceiling. The bath is through there, Mrs. Raymond said. There are clothes in the chest at the end of your bed. You'll stay in your room the rest of tonight. I'll send food up. What about Jason? You'll see him tomorrow, Mrs. Raymond said, after you visit the storyteller. I don't. Take a bath, put on clean clothes, sleep. Answers are for tomorrow. Good night, Miss Oliver. She paused halfway out of the room. And good night to you, Miss Bishara. Lock the door, the girl said as soon as Mrs. Raymond left the room. Madeline did as she was told. The locks don't do much, the girl admitted. Mrs. Raymond can still get in. She sat up. I'm Shula. Madeline. Shula pushed her massive mane of hair back, then let it fall around her face again. What deal did you make with the Ellen'll? Mrs. Raymond said not to tell anyone. Ha! Of course she did. Well, I can wait. You'll tell me when you're ready. Shula jumped to her feet and opened the bathroom door. She turned the tap, and steaming water fell into the tub. There's chocolate by my bed, she said. Take some if you want. Some chocolate sounded wonderful. Madeline broke off a square and set it on her tongue. She sucked on it until it was gone. Shula handed her a towel and told her to come back when she was clean. A long nightgown sat on her bed when she returned, clean and relaxed, her skin glowing with heat from the bath. She put the nightgown on and crawled under her covers. Light still streamed through the window, but her eyes wouldn't stay open. Shula said, Good night, and may you wake to good things in the morning. You're being so nice, Madeline said. Shula laughed. We stick together, you and me. But Mrs. Raymond isn't one of us. So we're friends. In this place, our lives depend on trusting each other, so we're going to have to watch each other's backs whether we like each other or not. Madeline yawned and tried to keep her eyes open. I like you, she said, her eyes falling shut, and I'll watch your back. A wave of thankfulness washed over her. A bath, chocolate, a new friend. You are a funny one, Shula said, so quick to trust. She patted Madeline's hand. Tomorrow we'll go to the storyteller. kind of stories does he tell? Madeline asked without opening her eyes. Different stories at different times. Shula said, don't worry. I'll go with you. Then we'll fight the skim. The end of chapter 8. And on Monday, we'll start in on chapter 9, which is Break Bones. The amazing Break Bones. And we'll meet Jason's roommates as well. As for now, let me get my headphones in here. And I see that we have Sarah Rubio here with us. Here she comes.
Hey,
Sarah.
Can you hear me?
How?
Hello?
I can. Can you?
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Means we can hear each other. Hold on a second. I made a little. Okay. Sarah. So Sarah, tell us a little bit about your job. Like, what does it mean? Like, you're an editor at Tyndale. What's your lay out for us a little bit what that means?
Sure. So, sorry, I'm there. Okay. Did something. So I work mostly with content of the books and do what we sort of call developmental editing. So I work after the books are acquired. I work with the authors to kind of get them to where we want them to be. So with a fiction book, we work a lot on story, dialogue, characters, stuff like that. And then with nonfiction, just kind of making sure that the author's message is coming through, that their voice is coming through. With picture books, we work on, if there's rhyme, we work on that and the rhythm. If not, we just kind of work on the vocabulary, stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of different things. So I work on everything from board books to young adult novels like The Crescent Stone.
So I know you've told me that I'm in a competition with your other favorite author, which is Mike Naraki, who did the Dead Sea Squirrels and is Larry the Cucumber. So it's a pretty rough it's a pretty rough competition for me.
It's tough for you, yeah. I mean, especially because like my kids know who Larry the Cucumber is, and they think I'm famous because I know him. So
right. That's why I'm doing these live casts. So I'm going to get to VeggieTales levels. That's the plan. Yeah. I'm guessing with different authors, there are different things that are sort of that you've got to work on with them. Like, do you know what I mean? I mean, I know you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
And I know for a fact the hardships I give you. But why don't you feel free to share that with our audience at home? What are the things you feel like when you get a manuscript from me, you're like, oh, here's the stuff we're going to have to work on?
Here we go. Yeah. So there's the semicolon thing.
Oh, yeah. I haven't told them that. So I hate semicolons. Yeah. So I will.
Completely irrational and insane aversion to semicolons with no basis in logic whatsoever.
It's true. Yeah, and I'll purposely have bad grammar and bad punctuation instead of using a semicolon.
Like a comma. I mean, I try not to get too hung up on punctuation, but because it is a little bit subjective, but there's just something about seeing two complete sentences joined by a comma. It's sloppy and painful.
It's true. Yeah, that's a hardship. One of the things with different editors, I feel like I grow in different ways. And one of the things I feel like you've helped me grow in a lot is bringing the emotional world of the characters into clearer focus for the reader. Is that something that's common or something that you just have to do for me?
No, I would say that it's fairly common. I think that a lot of times authors really live with these characters and you really know them well. So it can be hard to remember that, that the reader won't know them as well as you do. And you do need to kind of give the reader that glimpse sort of into their inner world, into their, what's going on with the thought process. Especially I think with authors who are really concerned with, who are building a whole new world like you are, or who really like to kind of make sure that the action keeps going. Who are really kind of focused on sort of getting to the next action beat. Sometimes that emotion can get lost. But I mean, at least when I'm reading, I really love to be able to really relate to the characters, to really kind of know, I want to feel what they're feeling. I want to know that they're responding to what's happening, I want to feel the weight and the depth of that. So I am always looking for that in the books that I read and in the books that I edit.
Yeah, I feel like you've really helped me to take my time more and spend, like you're saying, not just going after what happens next, but how do we feel about what just happened?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's been a big improvement for me. The other thing Sarah does that's really wonderful is she has this like encyclopedic knowledge about the stuff I've written. So I write things all the time that are actually in conflict with something I said previously. Like we just ran into this in a short story I was working on that she's like, yeah, you already said that's not true in the published book, so we can't say that. And I'm like, what? No, I didn't. And she's like, on page 210, book 2.
I literally mean it.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I feel like a lot of times you know more about the Sunlit Lands than I do.
It's probably true.
It is probably true. I think so. And
I mean, I read each book like probably 5 times in the process of working on it.
Amazing.
So it's a lot. And then sometimes I even go back and read them again. Can you believe it? I actually listen to the audiobooks. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, can you tell us a little bit? So Sarah, in addition to being an amazing editor, is also a very gifted writer. Tell us a little bit about your book, Far From Home, this is your first published book, right?
Yes, that's right. So this is a picture book, so a different age range. So yeah, it's a picture book about a boy whose world and daily life are from one day to the next totally different. So maybe something that we can all relate to a little more than we could when I was writing the book and publishing the book. So
that's true.
Yeah, it's the story of a little boy who has to leave his home, his country, and move to another country as a refugee. So just kind of from the eyes of a very young child, like what's that process like, and what does that feel like?
I have my copy right here.
Oh,
right next to me. Ta-da!
Yay.
It's a great book. I was telling him yesterday that the first 4 times I read this book, I was crying the whole time. Do
you want to read it online so we can all?
I mean, not right this minute. One of somebody who her name is Dr. Awesome, who's been coming every day. I just said yesterday, the phrase, it's about a refugee kid can pick a toy before he leaves. And she's like, I'm crying just from the description. Yeah, it's a really moving book. You did an amazing job.
Well, thank you.
I think we will probably have Sarah on in a few weeks to talk a little more in depth about her writing and other projects she may have coming up. But right now, if you have any questions for Sarah, feel free to leave them to make them, I guess. And we can take a look. So the live cast goes 30 seconds ahead of people. So it might be a minute before we see any questions. A couple people who missed our first round of shout outs. Grace says the Reeve family is here, but they were a little late. And then Cheryl said that she loves that we're doing this and she wishes she could stay longer. So apparently she had to leave. Bye, Cheryl. So, Sarah, how many books do you work on at a time as an editor? Or maybe not at a time. Do you just do them one at a time, or will you have 3 that you're doing at the same time? Uh-oh. I think I lost Sarah. She's frozen. Okay. Sorry, we lost you, Sarah. We'll have Sarah back another time. Sarah, thank you for coming and being with us. Really appreciate it. It looks like she lost her internet connection completely. Okay, so couple reminders. Don't forget, tomorrow at 1 Pacific is Lori Langdon. It's going to be a great time. Really looking forward to talking to Lori. If you missed it earlier, Sarah's website is sarahparkerrubio.com. You can also see her stuff. She's on Facebook at facebook.com/SarahRubioBooks. And she's on Instagram at instagram.com/SarahRubioBooks. So, and as always, just a reminder, the Crescent Stone is still available at a variety of places, including Tyndale.com is still taking orders. and sending those out. And the Crescent Stone, narrated by Natasha Sudek, is available from Oasis Audio at oasisaudio.com. Don't forget, every time you like, comment, or subscribe, it is of great help to us here as we're doing this read through, and brings us in a couple new people every time you do it. So if you don't mind, take a second to like, comment, or subscribe. And tomorrow we'll talk to Lori, and then starting next Monday, same time, we will start on chapter 9, and we'll go meet Jason's roommates, as well as a terrible, evil Skim for the first time, a horrific person who goes by the name of Breakbones. That's how you know he's a bad guy. All right, my friends, have a wonderful night, and I will see you tomorrow.